Hello, and thank you again for joining us. As you may know, the 2024 Maryland General Assembly is over. I want to extend my gratitude to the Montgomery County House and Senate delegations for their dedication and support of the priorities of the Montgomery County government and the 1.1 million residents we serve. Throughout the session, the General Assembly navigated complex issues, debated important legislation, and worked collaboratively to find solutions that would benefit our communities. Plenty of progress was made during this session. I'm pleased that we are able to continue to see state support for our bus rapid transit network. The Train Commission will also be considering creating regional transportation authorities and establishing local legislation to expand financing options and help provide much-needed infrastructure funding. And we received $500,000 in state capital funds for our life sciences biohub, a critical component of our growing life sciences industry. I want to thank the state for the $6 million in operating costs and $3 million in capital costs for the University of Maryland Institute for Health Computing. This partnership between the county and the University of Maryland is creating, at the North Bethesda Metro Station, the future of healthcare research and innovation, and will help us to continue developing private sector interest and investment in life sciences here. I was also happy to see that the state provided a way for all Marylanders, regardless of their immigration status, to be able to buy health insurance through the state's health exchange. They also put safeguards to help schools protect books from being banned without proper process and oversight. The legislature also passed affordable housing bills and thoughtfully addressed rising concerns about juveniles committing violent crimes and dangerous and reckless driving. The state also followed Montgomery County's lead and passed a bill to create a grant funding program for reproductive health clinics to bolster security at their facilities. They also bolstered community safety by passing the Melanie Diaz Act, which will establish new requirements for landlords to share essential fire safety information with tenants. While there is still much work to be done, I'm confident that working with our delegation, we will continue to build a brighter future for Montgomery County residents and for our fellow Marylanders across the state. This week, the public testified before the council on my recommended FY25 operating budget. About 150 people signed up to offer their thoughts on the budget, and many of them testified in support of programs in this $7.1 billion budget. We've come a long way since my first recommended budget, and in a good way. Before I was county executive, as a member of the county council, I was part of building budgets in those 12 years, and this is my 6th budget as county executive. When I took office in December of 2018, I faced a $90 million deficit in the first year, and our reserves were below our target of 10%. In fact, we had never ever achieved 10% in reserves. Now, 6 years later, we have been ending our budget years with more than 10% in reserve, and this year we hit 15% in reserves. We are using some of those reserves to fund critically important programs and services, including programs that help the hungry and people experiencing homelessness, fighting climate change, improving transit, making investments in affordable housing, and improving education. Even after funding those programs, my recommended budget still projects ending next year with 11.6 in reserves, well over the 10% target again. We will use some of the surplus that we're spending above the 10% target to support one-time spending, and some of it's going to be used for recurring spending. Part of this is driven by a council decision last year that told the school system to pay for ongoing expenses, $33 million of personnel expenses for new people, that they needed to pay for these expenses out of one-time federal funds that the school system had. And that meant that the cost for that staff would wind up in this budget without the revenues to support it. I don't think the council was anticipating, or the school system, that they'd be expected to cut these positions a year later. We're also compensating for the last 2 years of dramatic decreases in the transfer and recordation taxes that are expected to recover quickly once the Federal Reserve ends its current fiscal policies that are strangling the housing market by driving up the cost of borrowing, which raises costs for both builders and buyers. We expect and hope that the current situation will come to an end, and we expect that we'll be back to normal levels of transfer and recordation taxes probably on the order of $75 million a year. That's a significant swing in a positive direction. I tell you this because there's a memo from the council president to the council that asserts that there's a $115 million hole to fill when there isn't. We have more reserves than we require. We continue to earn AAA ratings from all three bond rating agencies and positive comments as well. Our reserves exceed those of the state and some other AAA jurisdictions located in the state. Another criticism is that this budget asks for too much, both fair compensation for our employees and services for the community. I want to say this is a false dichotomy, and it's really concerning. It can't be that if the council wants the county to spend more money on new programs, that in order to pay for the new programs, we have to punish our existing employees and not pay them properly. There is no way this is a choice we could take or should take, and I want to take a minute to talk about the compensation issues that were raised. The chart was from a memo to the council from their staff that detailed expected additions to compensation for FY25. It compiles a list of benefits, all of which the council already agreed to, except for the one line that says net new positions. And these positions include many things that the council wanted. These salaries reflect the nature of this region, and other businesses and governments are being forced to raise wages in order to be competitive, and we need to remain competitive if we're going to continue to retain and attract employees. If our pay doesn't attract the needed employees, we can't deliver the services our residents need and want. And many of these new positions reflect needs derived from council priorities and legislation. If these labor agreements are broken, it will break the trust, and that will not be easy to repair, because those agreements were negotiated in good faith and with good reason and approved by the council last year. This is a fiscally sound, reasonable budget with no tax increases and substantial reserves that continue to exceed our targets. The tough choices were made after 10 community meetings in preparation for this budget and months of work with each department. This proposal meets our needs and addresses our biggest concerns, like schools, public safety, and affordable housing. It does so without raising the tax rate, and I urge you to take a look at the budget over our interactive budget tool located at montgomerycountymd.gov/budget. A new poll shows that finding an affordable place to live is on the minds of more and more people across Maryland. Nearly 20% of those polled called it their top concern, trailing only crime in the rankings and ahead of public education, taxes, and jobs. Since 2019, Montgomery County has produced more than 1,300 affordable units even through the pandemic. Another 1,850 have been preserved. In the current fiscal year, of all the units that we have funded or committed to funding through production or preservation, we've generated 69.5% of those units as affordable units. We've preserved a higher percentage of existing affordable units because new housing construction is so expensive. There we've been able to generate about 33% of the newly built units as affordable in FY24. We also prioritize protecting naturally occurring affordable housing. For years, more affordable housing units were lost to new development than replaced. The county started with around 42,000 naturally occurring units in the year 2000, and now has fewer than 22,000 of those units remaining. It's projected by Park and Planning that we're likely to lose another 10,000 or more by 2030. We're trying to stop that trend by working with community partners in new ways. Last month, we celebrated changes to our right of first refusal law that will help keep long-term tenants from being priced out of their homes. Looking back over the last several years, the right of first refusal was an option in hundreds of transactions, but only exercised a handful of times because of the costs of that process. The new law eliminates the cost of holding a property, which will allow us to protect more affordable units. And last year, I signed the rent stabilization bill into law that provides renters legal protection against rent gouging in response to a sharp rise in rent hikes that had nothing to do with costs. It also will provide a comfortable margin for property owners to keep up with maintenance and make needed repairs to get a return on their investment. Montgomery County made historic investments in affordable housing during my first 5 years as county executive, and with this budget, that record investment continues. A record $169 million available for affordable housing, including $65 million in new money. I want to thank Governor Wes Moore and other state leaders for prioritizing affordable housing in this year's legislative session. I appreciate the cooperation and partnership of the executive and the legislative branches, but there's more work ahead. I was joined during my weekly media briefing on Wednesday by Maryland's Secretary of Housing, Jake Day. We talked about the progress made this session and how it helps make Maryland a place for everyone. I encourage you to watch our conversation, which is on Montgomery County's YouTube page. Last week, the United States Environmental Protection Agency named Montgomery County a partner in financing climate and clean energy solutions. The Montgomery County Green Bank is among the sub-awardees that will be able to apply for EPA grants awarded to the Coalition for Green Capital in order to invest in clean energy projects. The money comes from the historic $27 billion reserved in the Inflation Reduction Act to tackle greenhouse gases, and the Coalition for Green Capital, a collection of green banks from around the nation, have been awarded access to apply for $5 billion of the set-aside. Montgomery County Green Bank plans to use the funding to support building energy performance readiness programs. Once implemented, our building energy performance regulations will help us attack one of the most significant contributors of greenhouse gases, our buildings. Decarbonization efforts are some of our most important work moving forward. The grant money will also support the county's solar power purchase agreement and help residents install more solar. It also provides money for electric vehicle charging infrastructure to help residents looking to switch to EVs make that decision. Congratulations to Montgomery County Green Bank. These funds will help us reach our climate goals of cutting greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2027 and 100% by 2035, and it will create new clean energy jobs here in the county. Please visit mcgreenbank.org to learn more about how Montgomery County Green Bank impacts our community. Our Office of Consumer Protection is warning residents of potential scams involving driveway paving. The scam can involve anyone unlicensed for home improvement work. They generally knock on your door and agree to fix your driveway, but leave with your money before the job is done. Some victims have also had such lousy work done that a reputable business person was needed to come in and repair it immediately. Our Office of Consumer Protection is sharing some tips that can help you from becoming a victim as well. To begin with, be cautious if an estimate is made before you request one. If there is not a contract for the job shared with you before they want to begin, don't let them begin. If you do see a contract, make sure it contains a Maryland Home Improvement Commission license number. If it has the number, check that number with the state before approving the work to make sure they're in good standing. Don't be forced into a quick decision. An offer that is presented as cash only is a red flag. So is a contractor with out-of-state plates or using an unmarked truck. Don't trust that just because your neighbor's driveway turned out fine, that you can ignore these precautions. If you suspect a scam, share that information with the Office of Consumer Protection. Over the past year, the OCP has helped several victims of this scam. Their work has led to civil and criminal charges, and they've also managed to permanently or temporarily suspend all websites associated with these criminals. For more information and tips, or to file a complaint with OCP, you can visit montgomerykountymd.gov/OCP, or you can call 240-777-0311. And with that, it's a wrap for today. Hope you have a great week, and I'll be back again next week.